You can do it too. Easy as one, two, three. You can do it too. Come along and draw with me. Pads and pencils, a very good start. So when you draw with your heart. You draw with your heart, 'cause you can do it too. You can do it too. You can do it too.
Hi everybody, my name is Lydia Forte-Santiago and I'm here again to give you a fifth lesson. Now remember the last lesson what we did? We did an apple and we did it in black and white, and then we did a pear, we did it in black and white, and then after that we colored it in. So we're kind of going to follow the same principles. Today we have a beautiful red rose and we have a yellow rose and a nice little ceramic vase. What we're going to do is we're going to observe. Remember what I said? Don't draw, just look at it, observe. Get your eye to become keen to observe it and look at it and study it just before you're going to draw. So we just look at it. And remember what I said about the light? Art is light and form. We're studying light and we're studying the way it falls on the form. In this case is an object, which is a rose and a yellow rose and a little ceramic vase. Now, the light in this case, last time it was coming from the left. This time the light is coming from the right. And it's hitting the rose right on the top and the yellow rose. And then you could see these leaves, these two little leaves that is hitting on the leaves. And then the vase is the left side is dark, and the degradation of color, which means values. Remember that I said to you values? Degradation means values. The values have to change. When you're going to make something three-dimensional, when you're going to make it pop, when you're going to make it look like you could touch it, it has to be three-dimensional. And in order to make it three-dimensional, we have to make these different shades of values. So on the left side is dark all the way, and then it gradually goes lighter and lighter. There's the blue, it's blue cast, and it goes light all the way. And then as it's turning over here, where the light is flowing here, that's why it's really important to sharpen your eye and become keen. You see, I'm not drawing. I did a light little sketch just to get the idea. And remember what I said, light little sketch, very light little sketch. You don't have to do it heavy, you do it light. And the only reason that you do it light is because you're not sure. You want to make yourself very sure. Once you make yourself sure, you can come in heavy. So let's start. Here's my little, this is, by the way, I didn't mention it to you last time, but this is vine charcoal, and vine charcoal is soft, is gentle, it's easy to apply on the paper. So what we're going to do, and sometimes what we could do is we could take this little pencil like this and just make it a little bit darker. Now we're like, remember when we did the apple that we made the apple dark, but here this is the light part. So this wouldn't be the dark part. The dark part is heavy. So let's start with the dark part, because you always start with the shadows, of course. There. And then we start. And then we can kind of, we look right in here. If you look right in here, you could see it's really heavily dark. So let's do that. Let's make this heavy. We'll make that heavy and you could kind of use this, you could use this a little bit like that. Kind of like as a guide, because sometimes you need a maul stick, but a maul stick is that long when you're painting, but this little easel is small and my paper is not too large, so I could kind of just rest my hand like this and I could darken it. And if I want to rest, I could go like this and I could just sharpen this, and then I could make the bottom of it. Now remember at the bottom of the vase, the bottom of the vase is like, remember we did the bottom of the apple, that I always said darken it. Why darken it? Why darken the bottom? Because it's sitting on the table. And when it's planted, you want to show it that it's sitting on the table. You don't want to let it floating. You want to show it. Now right here, there's a shadow. The shadow swings that way to the left. So we can kind of add this. And as you go close to the vase, as you go close, it's a little bit darker. Right in here, it's just a little bit darker. But as light goes out, what happens? You're right, it lightens. It lightens because it kind of fades out. So you see, it fades out. Now here, you can darken it again. And then here's the design right in here. So we're gonna darken this a little bit because there's a brown design and there's kind of like an abstract shape over here, which is like an ochre color, which is yellowish. And then you put that in there and you can put the dark in there. And then this is blue. And then this you could start darkening up, you know, like this. And the degradations, like I said, this is the darkest. This is the darkest. The darkest is the shadow part, and kind of you always start really with the shadow parts because the shadow parts are what makes the picture like a little bit intense. So you should always put in your shadows first, even in portraiture. You always put shadows in first, and then it kind of like leads the way. Right in here, you put in the top of the vase, which goes around a little bit, and then you can start putting in the flowers. And here you just turn it, and now you have some light here. So you kind of could darken this a little bit, and you can put the petals in, you know. So if it's a little bit light and you're a little bit sure, you can start pronouncing them, and you could kind of make them look a little bit better, and they just fall into shape. And you kind of draw them out a little bit, you know. And you can take your time. You can color them in, and you put in your shadows like this. You look at it. You put this shadow in. You kind of intensify these little petals. You want to make sure they're there, and you can kind of, because we're not playing with color. You know, you do kind of one thing at a time with art. You know, you just draw it in. It has a couple of little leaves you could put in there, and there's a little leaf sticking out here you could put it in. So you kind of make it look pretty. Here's a leaf. When you just look at that leaf, it has a little bit of rough edges over there. You could really see that it has tiny little rough edges. So let's put them in. Let's put those little rough edges in. And then it has, the leaf has veins, so you can kind of shadow it and put a little veins in there, always to try to make the form realistic. Here's another little leaf that we could see with a little more little veins, and here's another little leaf that you see with a little more veins, and it goes on this side too. You can see a little bit on that side, and then kind of like the stem of the leaf, you could darken that a little bit to show a little intense. And then now we could start with the rose. Here it's the stem of the rose, very pretty. Darken it in. And now the dark, right here as I'm looking at this rose, it comes like this, the shape, and there's a kind of like a leaf there. But these petals are very pretty, and they're very shadowy in here. And then there's a little leaf in there, and there's another little leaf in there. You know, and you know what, the more you do this, the easier it gets. And you always say yourself, you can do it too. Remember that if I can do it, you can do it. And you say you to yourself when you're drawing, which I do. I say, I can do it, I can do it, I can do it. I was doing this painting with the schooner. I said, everybody said, oh, how are you going to do that? I said, I can do it. And that's what I want you to say. I want you to say when you draw, when you're painting, I can do it too. And the more you say I can do it, the more you believe in yourself. And when you believe in yourself, you get terrific results, and they're very rewarding. And you'll see for yourself how enjoyable it is to actually do a painting or a rose, or make a nice beautiful card, or give it to your mother or to your loved one, and something that you did with your own hands. You didn't buy it, you made it, you did it. Isn't that something? Isn't that very rewarding to do something with your own hands? It's wonderful and it's a great, great feeling. So this is why it's important to study it and draw it, and you can do it too. Remember that. Always remember that, because that's important. And what are we doing here? We're actually painting light on form. That's how it falls, and this is how we're going to do it, and we're going to reinstate it to make sure it's correct. And we're going to, the flowers, and right here, let's kind of darken this a little bit. Here's the brown part. You see that a little bit darker. Kind of like this flower is kind of throwing a shadow under here. So we're gonna have to do that. This is throwing right here, and this is coming from this flower here. So kind of let's intensify this. Let's intensify underneath these petals. Make them come out a little bit, you see. And this is what's going to make it really sharp, you know. And like I said, if I can do it, you can do it too. I wasn't a great art student. I was always fumbling and not being sure, but I learned to study art and to believe in myself that I could do it. And I'm just passing it on to you. If you need any tips, if you need any suggestion, I want you to reach out to me, because I really, really, from the bottom of my heart, I would love to hear from you, because I would like to help you. So if you need any tips or any suggestions or anything, you can contact me. You can contact me at Lydia Forte-Santiago.com, and any tips that I might help you with, I would love to help you with. Because when I was in art school, whenever I got an opportunity to draw, to do something, to look at something and go over, I would do it. And I really never thought that I was a good painter. I never did. I kind of started drawing picture after picture, and I kind of stayed with it. There's kind of like a trick to art. You have to stay with things. You can't let it go. You got to reinstate it, and you got to look at it, and you got to love it, and you got to keep at it, and then you'll see for yourself how beautiful the drawing can be. And you could kind of back out a little bit like that just to see, you know. And then right in here, there's a little ochre color that you will see, so you can kind of do that too. You know, this color right in here, this is like a little bit yellowish right here. So we could take a little gum eraser right here, and I could kind of like light that up like that. And then here, this right here gets dark, really dark. And you know why this is getting dark? I'm going to tell you. This is getting dark because this rose is throwing shadow right under here. So you have to do that. This red rose is showing a shadow right under here. Yeah. So this is hidden from the flowers. And then as it goes down, it lightens. But this here is very dark. This here is very dark. And this here gets dark. And then this here. And remember what I said with the apple, that you drag it through, you drag the color, you drag it. Now it doesn't mean there's no color here. It's degradation of color. What is degradation of color? Right. Degradation of color is change of value tone. So if it's very heavy here, it's very heavy here, this value is going to be different, and this is going to be different, and your stroke is going to be different. And you see the stroke on my hands, the stroke, and then the vase actually goes around like this, you see? So let's push it that way. Let's push it that way, because that's the way it's going. And then right in here, there's a stem, and it's a little bit darker there, you know. That's the stem, so that's a little bit darker. And then now, once you kind of get this look and you get this right in here, you throw in some more shadow. The yellow flower is a little bit lighter, so we're going to keep this a little bit lighter. It's not as heavy and darker as the red rose. But you come back, and now you start right here. There's a very sharp light, and that's because the light is coming from above and it's kind of splashing it right on here. So right here, we're just going to sharpen this. There's the sharpness here, and there's the sharpness there. It's just very intense there with the light, and then there's kind of like a little dark in between. So that's kind of good. Then here, the roses, you're going to kind of punch that out, and you're going to just highlight it. And then what I did, this is my gummy eraser. I kind of roll it like this and I make like a little point, almost like a little pencil. You see the way I did? It's easy. It's easy to do this because it's kind of easy to kind of stroke it and to move it a little bit around a little bit, and just kind of underneath here is dark, is very dark. Here is light, and then over here is dark. So you can kind of just punch it in a little bit, and here too, here. Now over here you could just put a little bit more dark here just to show that there's a little bud coming from here. So let's make that little bud, and make it a little bit intense. Like I said, I know a painter that takes 3 hours to do a flower, just one flower. So it's time consuming, and you have to really stay with your drawing. You kind of like, here's a little leaf that drops down a little bit. So we kind of just like, that's sort of like in the dark there. So we kind of just we kind of darken that up there because I could see it's falling on the shadow. And then you can kind of throw in your little veins here. There's little veins on the leaf, and you can throw a little bit more little veins on the leaf here. So this way you could see it, and this way you can get the picture to look just kind of like the way you want it, And over here it's sharpened. You make it look like it's going into the vase. So there's a little bit of around. You got to make this because it's circular. So this is going inside. So right in here, you can darken this a little bit because this is the part of the vase which I'm looking at that's going, these petals and these stem rather than petals, stem is going into the vase. So now you could see that it's going into the vase. So that's kind of pretty. And then this right here, it lightens up a little bit because the flower, the rose, is giving it some light because the light is falling sort of like on the center. And over here, this is kind of lit up too because now as you study the light, it's so important to study the light because you have to sharpen your vision to make it keen. The more you look at something, the more you observe it, the more you see it, the sharper you get. The sharper you get, the better the painting. So it's very important to look at it and study it and really, really get into it. Art is a passion. You have to feel it, you have to love it, and you could end up with very good results. And it's very, very rewarding. It takes time, and you can do it too. So remember, if I can do it, you can do it. So let's just look at it now. Let's just study it. Let's look and see what I did over here and what I did over here. Now this is the part that could lighten up a little bit, only because the vase is turning. Remember what I said? It's really following the same principles, but now we're not doing an apple, we're not doing a pear, we're doing flower, a rose, a yellow rose, a little vase. We're making kind of like a little composition, And you kind of like center your paper so you don't have it too much to the left or too much to the right. You kind of like center it so you have a little balance. So when you put your frame and everything, it looks very, very pretty. I also see some light. Oh, see, I was looking at this. Of course, I removed it, and it's not there. So that's trick. I thought it was light from up above, but it's not. It's just from this paper. So now if I remove it, it's not there. So I really don't want that there. So I just want this light, I want it like a little bit light. I want light from up above. What's falling, what I see. That's what I really want. So this is kind of like, you know. And then this is the overall. And anything, even that, even that beautiful painting that I titled it, I just did that painting, I titled it New York Harbor. Even this painting, how did you think I started this painting? I started it the way I started this little drawing. I took the canvas and I made a drawing. And I made a very light drawing, just like I'm doing. I didn't just tackle that right away. I took and I drew it. And I took and I measured everything. Like you could measure here, more or less your rows, you get an idea. Then you look at your flower. You want a little balance, so you want to make sure that it's balanced. Could measure like this. Sometimes I use what I call a caliper. This is a caliper. I'm going to show you. Because there's tools, and the tools are important, and the tools must be used. And this is my magnifying glass that I told you last time that I used. This is my magnifying glass. I told you that. And this is my caliper. Now the caliper is to measure. If you don't have a caliper handy, then I take and kind of like you can kind of measure like this. Kind of you can measure by eye when you train yourself, or you could be very specific and use a caliper. Now I could kind of measure this way, and then I kind of like that, and then I measure up my rows so I get a little balance of it, measure the vase, and I get a little balance, measure the length of the vase, just so you could get an idea. And what you can do too, you can kind of measure, and then you could kind of put a dot, and then you could put another dot, and then you could kind of put a dot and a dot, and you could kind of put a dot and a dot, a dot and a dot and a dot. And then what you do with the light pencil, then you connect the little dots together lightly, lightly. We're not tracing, we're just getting some sort of a balance. So it looks good and it looks even. And then you have all this dark. You see, whenever you see these little petals there and they're going underneath here, it's dark. So you have to darken that. So because that shows you where the light is coming from. The light in this case is coming from the top. So obviously it's over here that's kind of dark. We want to just darken this, you know. So it kind of looks pretty, and it's beginning to look pretty, you know. And here you have an intense light here. I see this very sharp, so we can kind of sharpen that. And this you keep dark. You just sharpen that a little bit, you know. And up here where the rose is, the yellow part right here, kind of like the yellow where the petals are out up here. They're kind of like the lightest. So you kind of punch in a little light there, and just to show that the light is coming from the top, and the light is shooting this way, you know. And then there's like kind of little drag it down like that, just to show that there is a light and it's coming, because this is kind of like a little ceramic, and then here there's just a little design of darkness here that I'm looking at here. You could add that in. You could add. That's why it's important to keep looking at it and study and reinstate it, because it really matters what you're actually doing. It's really important to study the light. Sometimes you can't think of the flower, or you can't think of the vase. You got to think of the light. It always goes back to the light, the way the light falls on the form. In that case, the light hitting the ocean, the waves, the people in the boat, the Statue of Liberty, the sun hitting the Statue of Liberty, holding. It's always the light. So this is what we're doing, study of light. Now right in here, I could see, now I'm reinstating. I'm just making, remember we did this with the apple? Remember we did that with the apple. The principles have to be followed kind of in the same way. It's a principle. And as long as you follow the principle, you really, really can't miss. So look at it, study it. Now you see how it's getting just a little bit more intense. It's getting very clear because this flower just throws off that. You could see it, you could look at it and you could see it. This flower falls off and throws it. Now remember what I said to you. If you need tips, if you need ideas, if you have a comment, if you have a suggestion, something that I could be of helpful to you, I would love to help you. Just contact me, Lydia, Forte-Santiago.com, and I would love to help you. Now, always remember what I said. If I can do it, you can do it, and you can do it too. So remember that. Because when I paint, when I draw, I always say, I can do it. And sometimes when I'm painting, I says, I can do it, I will do it, I'm going to do it. And this is what I tell myself. And you believe in you. Don't worry about what anybody says. Don't worry about what people say about your drawing or your painting or anything. Don't worry about anything like that. Just draw it, get into it, and you will see how rewarding it is. And it's really a pleasure and a blessing to do a painting. Imagine all the painters and all the beautiful paintings that you see in the museum. They're beautiful, and it took time. It took effort, and it took a lot of skill. It's not done overnight, but it has to be done slowly and carefully. Now, you can come back and see my next show, and I would love to help you. And remember what I said. You can do it too.
You can do it too. Easy as 1, 2, 3. You can do it too. Come along and draw with me. Pads and pencils, a very good start. So when you draw with your heart. You draw with your heart, 'cause you can do it too.